First contact. The sonar readings made no sense. Nathan Foster squinted at the display screen inside the deep-sea research vessel Nautilus, watching impossible patterns dance across the monitor. At 10,000 meters below sea level, in the heart of the Mariana Trench, they'd expected to find new species, but nothing like this. "Dr. Foster, you need to see this," whispered Raj Patel, his research assistant, eyes fixed on the external cameras. Through the reinforced viewport, a soft purple glow illuminated the infinite darkness of the deep ocean. It pulsed with a rhythm that reminded Nathan of a heartbeat. "Are we getting this recorded?" Nathan asked, already reaching for the backup systems. The phenomenon didn't match any known bioluminescent patterns. As he adjusted the camera settings, the light intensified, forming intricate geometric patterns that defied natural law. The vessel's communications system crackled. "Nautilus, this is surface control. We're detecting unusual energy signatures. Recommend immediate ascent." Before Nathan could respond, the purple light enveloped their vessel completely. The water around them began to crystallize, not into ice, but into something else, translucent structures that seemed to grow and shift like living architecture. "All systems are still functional," Raj reported, though his voice trembled. "But, we're not reading any water pressure anymore. That's impossible at this depth." Nathan felt it then, a presence in his mind, gentle but unmistakable, like fingers brushing against his consciousness. A voice, melodious and ancient, whispered in thoughts rather than words, "After 1,000 years, you have returned to me." The purple light coalesced, taking form before their viewport. A figure emerged, tall, ethereal, with skin like polished opal and hair that flowed like liquid starlight. Her eyes, iridescent and multifaceted, fixed upon Nathan with an intensity that made his knees weak. "I am Lysandra, Queen of the Celestial Empire," the voice echoed in his mind. "And you, Nathan Foster, carry within you the soul of my beloved." Raj grabbed Nathan's arm. "Dr. Foster, are you seeing this?" "Yeah," Nathan managed, his mouth dry. "I'm seeing it." The being, Lysandra, raised her hand, and reality seemed to fold around them. The vessel's interior remained unchanged, but beyond the viewport, they now floated in what appeared to be a vast crystal chamber. Other beings, similar to Lysandra but smaller, moved through the space with fluid grace. "Your current form is different," Lysandra continued, her thoughts carrying notes of both joy and sorrow, "but your essence remains unchanged, Theron." "I think there's been a mistake," Nathan said aloud, knowing somehow she would hear him. "I'm just a marine biologist from Seattle. I study deep-sea ecosystems, not, whatever this is." A smile touched Lysandra's luminescent features. "Your memories were scattered and the void storms tore you from us. But they remain, buried deep within." She approached closer, her form passing through the vessel's hull as if it were mist. "Let me show you." Before Nathan could protest, she touched his forehead with a single finger. Images flooded his mind, vast cities suspended between stars, beings of light and crystal discussing matters of cosmic importance, and himself, or someone who looked nothing like him but felt inexplicably familiar, standing beside Lysandra as her equal, her partner, her king. The visions faded, leaving Nathan gasping. Raj stood frozen beside him, watching the scene unfold with scientific fascination warring with pure disbelief. "The convergence of dimensions has begun," Lysandra explained. "The barrier between our worlds grows thin, allowing us to reach through at certain points, like this deep ocean trench. We need you, Theron. Both our realms face a threat that only you can help us overcome." "And if I refuse?" Nathan asked, though something deep within him already knew he wouldn't. "Then both your world and mine will fall to the void that once claimed you," Lysandra replied. "The choice, as always, remains yours. But remember, you once pledged not just your crown to our people, but your heart to me." As if to emphasize her words, the crystal chamber around them shimmered with images of impending doom, shadows that devoured stars, realities that collapsed in on themselves, and armies of beings that seemed to be made of living darkness. Nathan looked at Raj, who nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, Dr. Foster," his assistant said, "I don't think we're dealing with a new species anymore. This is something else entirely." Taking a deep breath, Nathan turned back to Lysandra. "I don't remember being your king," he said carefully, "but if both our worlds are truly in danger, I'll help however I can. Just, no more surprise memory downloads, okay?" Lysandra's smile brightened the entire chamber. "As you wish, my beloved. Though I suspect your memories will return on their own, given time. Now, shall we begin your return to Ethoria? Our people have waited long enough for their king's return." The purple light intensified once more, and Nathan Foster, marine biologist, skeptic, and apparently reincarnated alien royalty, felt his world begin to transform around him. The adventure that would bridge two realms had only just begun. Memories of Stardust. The transition between dimensions felt like diving through liquid light. When Nathan's vision cleared, he found himself standing in what appeared to be a vast observatory, though instead of telescopes, it housed enormous crystals that captured and displayed the movements of entire galaxies. "Welcome to the Celestial Archive," Lysandra said, her form shimmering as she materialized beside him. Raj stumbled next to them, his scientific mind visibly struggling to process their new reality. The Nautilus had been left behind, safely preserved in a bubble of their own dimension. "This is where we store the memories of our civilization," she continued, gesturing to the towering crystals. "And where your own memories as Theron were preserved after your disappearance." The chamber stretched endlessly upward, its crystalline walls reflecting cascading patterns of starlight. Other beings, the Etherians, as Nathan learned they were called, moved through the space like living constellations, their forms shifting between solid and ethereal states. "First things first," Nathan said, trying to maintain some semblance of scientific objectivity. "You mentioned a threat to both our worlds. What exactly are we dealing with?" Lysandra waved her hand, and one of the larger crystals pulsed with images. "We call them the Void Harbingers. They exist between dimensions, feeding on the energy of collapsing realities. 1,000 years ago, they launched their first attack on Ethoria. The crystal showed scenes of battle, Etherians wielding weapons of pure light against shadowy entities that seemed to devour everything they touched. Nathan watched as a familiar figure, Theron, his supposed past self, led the defense alongside Lysandra. "We won that war," Lysandra continued, "but at a terrible cost. You were lost to the void during the final battle, and without our combined power, we could only force them into retreat, not destroy them completely. And now they're back," Raj observed, having found his voice again. "But why target Earth?" "Because your dimension exists at a crucial junction point," another voice answered. A tall, distinguished-looking Etherian approached, his form more solid than most. "I am Keeper Talon, guardian of the archives. Earth's position in the dimensional fabric makes it the perfect staging ground for their invasion." Nathan felt a headache building as he tried to process everything. "So what am I supposed to do? I don't remember being Theron. I don't know how to fight interdimensional shadows." "Perhaps this will help," Lysandra said softly, producing a small, personal memory crystal. "This contains the essence of your final moments as Theron. It may trigger the return of your other memories." Nathan hesitated, remembering his earlier request about memory downloads. But curiosity, the same drive that had led him to explore Earth's deepest oceans, won out. He took the crystal. The moment his fingers touched its surface, the world dissolved around him. He was Theron again, standing atop a crystal spire as vast shadow ships descended from a tear in reality. Lysandra fought beside him, their powers combined creating shields of pure light to protect their people. But the Harbingers had a new weapon, a device that could shatter the dimensional barriers themselves. In the memory, Theron realized their plan too late. They weren't just attacking Ethoria, they were trying to collapse all dimensions into one endless void. He made a choice. Using his connection to the crystal matrix that powered their civilization, Theron redirected all of Ethoria's defensive energy into a single blast. It worked, destroying the device and driving back the Harbingers, but the backlash tore open a rift that pulled him in. The last thing he saw was Lyssandra's face, her anguished cry echoing across dimensions as he fell through space and time, his memories scattering like stardust. Nathan gasped as the vision ended, dropping the crystal. "I remember," he whispered. "Not everything, but enough. The weapon they used, it would have destroyed everything. And now they've built another," Keeper Talon said grimly. "Our sensors detected its energy signature on your Earth, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean. That's why their forces gather there, using the Mariana Trench as a focal point. The unusual readings we detected," Raj realized. "They weren't just random anomalies." "No," Lysandra confirmed. "They were signs of the barrier's weakening. The Harbingers are nearly ready to begin their invasion, and this time, they will target both our worlds simultaneously." Nathan looked at his hands, human hands that had somehow once wielded the power of stars. "I still don't know how to access Theron's abilities. Even with these memories, I'm not him. Not completely." "You don't need to be," Lysandra said, taking his hand. Her touch sent shivers of energy through his body, awakening something that felt both ancient and new. "You are who you are now, a bridge between worlds. Perhaps that's exactly what we need." Raj cleared his throat. "Dr. Foster, if I may. Our research on deep-sea pressure dynamics might actually be relevant here. If the Harbingers are using the trench's unique properties, then we might be able to turn it against them," Nathan finished, his scientific mind beginning to merge with Theron's strategic instincts. "But we'll need help from both sides." Lysandra nodded. "Our forces are ready. But first, there's something else you need to see." She led them deeper into the archives, toward a section that seemed to pulse with urgent energy. "The prophecy that spoke of your return, it mentioned a price that must be paid to save both worlds." As they approached the pulsing crystal, Nathan felt a growing sense of dread. Whatever choice lay ahead would change everything, again. But this time, he wouldn't face it alone. The rebellion rises. Deep within the crystalline corridors of Ethoria, a different kind of darkness was brewing. Nathan, Raj, and Lysandra stood before the Council of Light, 12 elder Etherians whose forms shimmered with accumulated wisdom of millennia. But not all faces showed welcome. "This human claims to be our lost king." The speaker, Lord Draven, moved like liquid mercury as he circled Nathan. "Convenient timing, when the Harbingers approach once again. Perhaps too convenient." Nathan felt the weight of countless eyes upon him. The great chamber, with its spiraling architecture of living crystal, seemed to pulse with tension. Raj stood quietly beside him, documenting everything in a small notebook, ever the scientist, even in an alien realm. "The resonance patterns don't lie, Draven," Lysandra countered, her voice carrying the authority of centuries. "His essence matches Theron's completely." "Patterns can be falsified," another voice called out. From the shadows emerged Commander Vex, leader of Ethoria's defensive forces. His form was darker than most Etherians, almost stormy. Just as the Harbingers falsify dimensional signatures to hide their presence. Nathan stepped forward. "I understand your doubts. I had them myself. But the memories I've recovered dash. Memories." Vex's laugh was like breaking glass. "Our enemies are masters of deception. They could have planted false memories, creating the perfect infiltrator." The chamber erupted in murmurs. Nathan noticed some Etherians nodding in agreement while others looked uncertain. The unity of their civilization was fracturing before his eyes. Raj suddenly spoke up. "If I may." All eyes turned to the human scientist. We've observed similar skepticism in Earth's scientific community when paradigm-shifting discoveries are made. But consider this, why would the Harbingers create an infiltrator who doesn't even remember being your king? Wouldn't that be counterproductive? A thoughtful silence followed his words. Even Vex seemed momentarily taken aback by the logic. But then alarms began blaring throughout the Crystal City. Keeper Talon burst into the chamber, his usually composed form flickering with urgency. The Harbingers, they've launched their first attack. Not on Ethoria, on Earth. Holographic displays materialized, showing massive shadow ships emerging from the Mariana Trench. Earth's military responses seemed futile, their weapons passing harmlessly through the interdimensional vessels. We must act now, Lysandra declared. With or without the Council's full approval. No. Vex's form expanded, darkening further. I will not risk our forces on the word of a supposed king who appears from nowhere. For all we know, this is exactly what the enemy wants. To everyone's shock, nearly a third of the assembled Etherians moved to stand with Vex. The time has come for new leadership, he announced. Leadership that puts Ethoria first. You're letting fear cloud your judgment, Nathan said, suddenly feeling more of Theron's diplomatic experience surface. The Harbingers don't want to conquer our worlds, they want to collapse them. There won't be an Ethoria to put first if we don't work together. Pretty words, from an impostor, Vex sneered. He raised his hands, and dark energy began to gather. I declare martial law. Arrest them all. But Lysandra was faster. Before Vex's followers could move, she had created a barrier of pure light around their group. Nathan, she said urgently, remember the crystal matrix. Your connection to it should still exist, even in your human form. Nathan closed his eyes, reaching for that familiar power. For a moment, nothing happened. Then he felt it, a resonance, like touching a tuning fork to pure energy. The closest crystals began to hum. Impossible, Vex breathed. Using his combined knowledge of Earth's oceanic pressure systems and Etherian crystal technology, Nathan created a portal. Everyone who wants to save both our worlds, come with me now. Raj didn't hesitate, stepping through first. Lysandra and about half the council followed, along with numerous other Etherians who chose allegiance to their true king over Vex's fear-mongering. As Nathan prepared to step through himself, he looked back at Vex. When I was Theron, you were one of my most trusted commanders. Don't let fear of change make you become what we've always fought against. Vex's response was to launch a bolt of dark energy, but Nathan was already through the portal. It sealed behind him, leaving them in what appeared to be an underwater cavern, protected by a bubble of Etherian energy. Where are we? Raj asked, already pulling out his instruments. The one place the Harbingers won't expect us to go, Nathan replied. The deepest point of the Mariana Trench. If they want to use Earth's pressure dynamics against us, we'll show them how it's really done. Lysandra touched his arm gently. You're remembering more. Yes, he nodded. But I'm not just remembering who I was. I'm figuring out who I need to be now. He turned to address their gathered allies. We face enemies on two fronts, the Harbingers above, and now a rebellion in Ethoria. But maybe that's exactly why I came back different. We need new solutions, not just old memories. As if in response to his words, the crystals they'd brought began to pulse with a new frequency, one that matched the natural resonance of the deep ocean around them. A plan started forming in Nathan's mind, one that would require everything he was, both human and Etherian. Between two worlds. The underwater base they'd established in the Mariana Trench hummed with combined human and Etherian technology. Nathan stood before a holographic display showing both Earth's oceans and Ethoria's dimensional boundaries, the two maps overlapping in ways that made his head spin. The Harbinger's ships have spread to all major oceanic trenches, Raj reported, his fingers dancing across a crystal interface. But they're concentrating their forces here, in the Pacific. Through the base's force field windows, they could see the massive shadow ships moving above them like dark leviathans. Earth's military forces had withdrawn after their weapons proved useless, leaving humanity in a state of global panic. "They're using the trenches as amplification points," Lysandra observed. "Just as they did during their first invasion of Ethoria." Her form flickered with concern as another alert came through. "And Vex's forces are mobilizing. He's convinced many that helping Earth will weaken our defenses." Nathan felt the weight of both worlds pressing down on him, heavier than even the ocean's pressure outside their bubble. The memories of his life as Theron had become clearer, but they also showed him why his past self solutions wouldn't work now. Dr. Foster, one of the human scientists they'd managed to contact, Dr. Rena Puri, approached with new data. "We've analyzed the resonance patterns between the crystal matrix and Earth's tectonic plates. There's something you need to see." The display shifted, showing a complex web of energy flows. "The Harbingers aren't just using the trenches for amplification," she explained. "They're using them to create a massive resonance pattern, like a giant tuning fork." Of course, Nathan breathed, the scientist and the king in him reaching the same conclusion. "They're not trying to invade through the trenches. They're trying to make Earth and Ethoria vibrate at the same frequency. Which would cause both dimensions to collapse into each other," Lysandra finished. "Creating the void they need to feed." A distant explosion rocked their base. Through the windows, they saw Vex's forces emerging from dimensional rifts, engaging both the Harbingers and their own defensive positions. "This is madness," Raj said, watching Etherians fight Etherians while shadow ships moved through their battles like hungry predators. "They're doing the Harbingers' work for them." Nathan closed his eyes, feeling the vibrations through the crystal matrix. Something about them seemed familiar, not from Theron's memories, but from his own research into deep-sea acoustics. "What if we're thinking about this wrong?" he said suddenly. "We're trying to stop the resonance, but what if we could change it instead?" He rushed to the central crystal array, making adjustments. On Earth, certain whale species use different frequencies to communicate across entire oceans. The water actually helps carry their songs further. "The crystal matrix works on similar principles," Lysandra added, catching on. "It's how we maintain our dimensional stability." "Exactly. So instead of fighting the resonance." Nathan's hands flew over the controls, combining Earth science with Etherian technology. "We create a counter-harmony." Dr. Puri's eyes widened. "Like noise-canceling headphones, but on a dimensional scale." The base shuddered as more battles raged above. They were running out of time. Nathan could feel the frequencies building, threatening to tear both worlds apart. "We'll need to synchronize every crystal node on Earth with its corresponding point in Ethoria," he said. "But with Vex's forces in the way." "Leave that to me," Lysandra declared. Her form began to glow brighter. "I can use the Queen's crown to broadcast a signal that every true Etherian will recognize, the same resonance that proved you were Theron." As she raised her hands, the crown she wore pulsed with pure light. The signal spread outward, carrying with it not just energy, but truth. Every Etherian would feel the genuine connection between dimensions that Nathan represented. The effect was immediate. Throughout the water around them, battles paused as Vex's followers began to realize they'd been manipulated by fear. Even Vex himself, visible through one of their monitoring crystals, seemed to falter. "Now!" Nathan commanded. They activated the modified crystal matrix just as the Harbinger's resonance reached its peak. The two frequencies met in a clash of energies that made reality itself shudder. For a moment, everything hung in perfect balance. Then the new harmony took hold, transforming the destructive resonance into something else entirely, a bridge between worlds, but not one that would collapse them. Through their windows, they watched in awe as the shadow ships began to dissolve, their very substance unwound by the counter-frequency. The Harbingers had never considered that the connection between dimensions could be strengthened rather than broken. But their victory came with a price. As the new resonance pattern stabilized, Nathan felt something changing within himself, the memories of Theron becoming clearer even as his connection to them grew more distant. The bridge goes both ways, he realized, looking at Lysandra. Doesn't it? Her expression was both sad and proud. Yes. To maintain this harmony, there must be anchors on both sides. You understand what that means? He did. The choice that had been prophesied was upon him, and it was both simpler and more difficult than anyone had imagined. The price of unity. The crystalline chamber pulsed with newfound energy as Nathan faced the assembled representatives of both worlds. Earth's military and scientific leaders stood alongside Etherians, former enemies now united by their shared victory and the harmony that thrummed between their dimensions. The resonance pattern is stable, Raj announced, his eyes fixed on the monitoring crystals. But maintaining it requires constant adjustment from both sides. Nathan nodded, feeling the pull of both realities within him. The choice he faced wasn't just about him anymore, it was about ensuring lasting peace between two worlds that had nearly been destroyed by fear and misunderstanding. I believe I know why I returned as I did, he addressed the gathering. Not fully Theron, not just Nathan. The universe doesn't need a king who rules from above. It needs bridges built from understanding. Vex stepped forward, his stormy form now calmer. I was wrong about you, he admitted. Fear of change blinded me to the very thing that makes both our worlds strong, our ability to adapt. The question remains, Lysandra said softly, how do we maintain this bridge? Nathan smiled, finally understanding the true meaning of the prophecy. By sharing what we know. Earth's scientists have been studying the deep oceans for generations. Etherians have mastered crystal harmonics. Apart, we were vulnerable. Together. He placed his hands on the central crystal matrix, and it responded with a rainbow of colors. I propose we create a permanent exchange. Earth gets an embassy in Ethoria, Ethoria gets one here in the Mariana base. And I. You'll be the bridge, Dr. Puri finished, understanding dawning in her eyes. Moving between both worlds, teaching us how to maintain the harmony. But the strain of existing in two dimensions, Lysandra began, concern evident in her voice. Will be shared, Nathan assured her. Just as I'm not exactly Theron anymore, I won't be exactly Nathan either. I'll be something new, like the harmony we've created. As if in response to his words, the crystal matrix pulsed, and Nathan felt his form shift. His human body remained, but now it shimmered with a faint Etherian light. He could exist in both worlds without being torn apart by their differences. The resonance patterns are adapting, Raj observed with scientific wonder. They're creating a new stable frequency that accommodates both dimensional states. Lysandra approached Nathan, her form also slightly altered, more solid than before, bridging the gap between their species. So we don't have to say goodbye after all, she said, taking his hand. Where they touched, light and shadow danced together in perfect balance. No, Nathan agreed. We say hello to something new instead. The ceremony that followed was unlike anything either world had seen. Representatives from Earth's nations stood alongside Etherian nobles as protocols for interdimensional cooperation were established. The Mariana base would become a center of shared learning, while portions of Ethoria's crystal cities would welcome human researchers and diplomats. Vex, in a final act of redemption, volunteered to lead the security forces that would protect these exchanges. Perhaps fear of the unknown can be transformed into excitement for discovery, he mused. As the celebrations continued around them, Nathan and Lysandra stood at a window overlooking both the ocean depths and, through a dimensional opening, the crystal spires of Ethoria. Their reflections showed their new forms, neither fully one world or the other, but a perfect blend of both. What do you think the Harbingers would say, Nathan wondered, if they knew their attempt to destroy everything actually led to this unity? Perhaps that was the universe's plan all along, Lysandra suggested. Sometimes the void we fear most becomes the space where new possibilities are born. Raj approached them with a stack of research proposals. Sorry to interrupt, but we're already getting incredible readings from the harmonic intersection points. There's so much we could learn. Nathan laughed, feeling both the scientist's excitement and the king's wisdom within him. Then let's get started. After all, we have 2 worlds of discovery ahead of us. The deep waters around them shimmered with possibility as human submarines and Etherian vessels began their joint patrols. Above, the first human delegates were preparing to visit Ethoria, while Etherian scholars eagerly awaited their turn to study Earth's unique properties. And at the heart of it all, a man who was both king and scientist, both human and Etherian, stood ready to guide them all into a future where the unknown was no longer something to fear, but something to explore together. The harmony between worlds had been struck. Now it was time to learn its song.